Okay, so I just built this for less than $300, as well as this desk here. I just went ahead and did that at the same time. And if you, I'm going to show you how I did it from step by step. So just continue watching this video and you can see how I do all my buildings with nothing but 1x12s and for pretty cheap, way cheaper than you could think. So stick around and you'll see that. Okay, so this is what we have here today. We're gonna build a closet setup here, and kind of, you get the idea, it's gonna be like a bookshelf-esque thing on the sides here, and then we're gonna have shelving going across like this. A couple things to remember about this: when you're doing above any shelving above washer and dryers, you typically want 18 inches because that's the full width of this is about 17, and then you want to leave some room. So our first shelf is going to start, you can imagine, right up here, and it's going to be effectively two towers here and here, and then they will be connected with the centerpiece. I'm thinking doing that black and then staying the front middle, and then I'm going to show you how I did it pretty much exactly like this bookshelf that I'm going to put on screen here. I did that as well, and that's pretty much what we're going to mock here. Is everything is going to be made out of 1x12s. You can get 1x2s or whatever for the rips like I'm going to show you. There's two ways to do this when you're doing the actual shelving unit. Is first you got to figure out your size on what you want, and 12 inches, you can see 8 inches is from the very back to the wall. That's 8 inches, which leaves 4 right here. I'm going to go out another 6, so our shelving is going to be pretty much right here, uniform, 18 inches out roughly. That way you have your shelving in here. I was thinking about making 24, which is all the way out here, but then your shelving's too deep, and what's the point of that other than to make it try to flush? And you can go as far out as you want with it. If you want it flush with this or sticking out past this, you can. They'll just have way deeper shelves, and it's more expensive to do that. With this 1x12 method, all your lumber comes in 11 1/4 width, so you have to remember that when you're doing it. And so once you have what your depth is going to be, 18 inches, which the reason why I did that, it's going to be a little bit less than 18. It's pretty much going to be your 1x12 and then another 1x12 cut in half for the width here. That will be in 3 going up, and then 3 on this side, which will leave us 6 in total, and then 7 for the boys that are going this way. And then if you're doing just 1x12, then you can kind of shift it for your length as well. Then you can shift it going this way, have your grind going this way. What I'm going to do is have the 1x12s going this way instead, and that way I can get the half in there and the full in there, and then everything will be uniform. And then I'll add the the fake fronts to make it look thicker, as you saw in that picture, because that was all done with 1x12s as well. And then I'll do the same thing up here to where it'll look like it'll effectively all be been done with butcher block, which is obviously really expensive, but this is kind of a cheaper way to get that same look and design to it. And then once you have your depth, then you figure out your length. This is going to be a little different. I'm going to have a trash can here. The first cubby is going to be the floor. You can do this either way. If you wanted to do it like I'll show you in a minute in the office, then you would make like a little box and then have a platform as your shelf, then go up from there. We're just going to use the actual floor as our first unit, and then our 1x12s are going to sit right on top of the trim, and then the other 1x12s going here. And then we'll kind of tie it all in together with the 1x2s. I'll show you in a minute. But that's how you would tie the half and the full together as the length here. And then for your actual shelving, you could either do what I'm going to do, which is do your 1x2s in here all the way in the back and then here out. And then when you put it and then you put your fake front on, you won't be able to see it. Or you can use what I used in the office build. I'll show you in a minute. and that's like little L brackets that you pretty much just put a hole in, you drill a hole, you set it, and then you shut the shelf on top of it. That way you can take the shelf in and out as you want, and not have everything be so primitive. You would just have holes that you would fill in, and then you can change where your shelving is. So pretty much here is going to be a trash can, so our first shelf is going to start here, and then we'll probably have 1 or 2 more, and then this shelf over here is going to be the same distance because it's going to be a laundry basket. So that's pretty much the design that we have here. So then this is pretty much what it's going to look like. I have my front yard here. I have that board that's going to be stained. I have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. The 5th one being the shelving going this way. And then your 4 are going to be standing at vertical. I have the rips that I already cut in half. And then I have your blocking that I was talking about earlier. And then these are what I'm talking about. This is all I use. You can use, everything here can be made out of 1x12s. It's just not how I choose to do it. So I bought this board here. You can buy this at Lowe's, and then that's going to be your fronts like that. And then everything will be painted black. I pre-paint everything. All that's left is to paint those sides and then these, and then all the painting will be done. And then it's just about assembling. So we'll go ahead and cut to that. Okay, so we have that board in here, and this is what I'm talking about. Half piece I always put in the back. It's the piece you're not going to see. And then this piece right here, and then that will make it stick out about here, which is pretty good. If I did 12, it would have been way back here. So I added 6 inches outward. I think that'll be way better. Plenty deep shelves, and still leave you plenty of room to move these around as you wish. And these, so what you're going to want to do here is, you see how this one's stacked on top of the corner of the trim there. Now you're going to have to cut your next long piece out around the trim, and pretty much how you do that is you just measure it from the floor up, not the actual trim piece because it's going to be setting on the floor. So you're going to do floor up, that comes out to 3.5, and then you're going to do thickness from the wall to the highest part, which is 3/4. And then when you cut that little notch out, it's going to fit in smooth. That's how you get that flush. You only have to do that twice, once for this side and then once for this side, and then should look something like this. And then once you get that cut out, then once you have this cut out, you go ahead and make yourself some of these, which this is going to imitate the exact distance that it's going to be. So this is going to be where you're going to nail this like this, or I like going like this, that way if the nail sticks out, it sticks on the inside. You can break it rather than the outside. So you're going to shoot it in. This one's going to be in the wall, and it's going to effectively, you're going to want to put that in, nail this side into that wall, nail this into the actual wall, find your stud with this, and then you're going to figure out how high you want it to the bottom. So I want mine to be 39.25, just because 38 and some change is the lid all the way up, and I want to leave a little bit of a gap there. So it's going to effectively, and then you make your mark. So it's going to come up to right here. This is my mark. So I'm going to set the bottom of, I'm going to set the thing here to where my shelf is going to end up here. So the top of that nailer piece should be at that mark. Then you're going to nail it in here, and nail it in here, make sure it's level. Then you bring your other board in, and then you nail it. That's how you keep that floating in, and then we're going to come back with screws later and actually make it tight. And then once everything's in, what you can do is go ahead and grab you one of those angle pieces that I was talking about, and then put however many on the inside that you want, and that's just for extra security, but not technically needed. Like you could put one on the trim piece there or whatever. And then we're going to go ahead and put that in, and then put the first piece in, and it should look something like this. So then pretty much you'll have that, and then that I'll show you, you'll pretty much just cover up with a piece of trim, crown molding. And there you have it. You have your first shelving piece, and then once that piece goes on, then that part's done for the most part. And then I always make these stick in farther, even though your shelf's going to go here. You're going to put your thingy on it so it looks kind of fake, if you will. And there's two ways to do this. You could either bring all your trim out, and you have to decide this kind of up front before you cut your shelving pieces. So pretty much what you would do is you could have them all be exactly the same length. You rip this down, and then you make a full piece, put the rip back there, put the full piece here, then they'll be flush. Then you can do 1-inch trim all the way around here, like this. You would put it here, and then you would put it here as well. That way everything sticks out about like 1 inch more. You can do that, or you can do the side now and then cut your shelf a little bit shorter and then leave yourself about a 1/2 inch, and then you could put that kind of top plate thingy on like that, and then it will still be flush with this. So you would just pretty much subtract whatever your thickness of that board is. If it's 1 inch, it's probably 3/4. So you make your shelf 3/4 less, and then that way when your front piece goes on that's thicker, that's going to cover this up to where your shelf goes on right here, and it's going to boom like that, which is how you want it. Makes it look thicker. Then from there it would be flush with that, if that makes sense. You'll see later. So that's pretty much how you do that. And then I like to go ahead and put the shelf on because it's all the same color. If you're doing stain, I would do all the paint, then put your stain pieces on. I don't like mixing the colors. It gets messy. If you get one scuffed up, you either have to leave it or you have to try to stain around and then tape everything. I hate doing that, so I like to do all the paint and all that. And what you want to make sure is that this is level like that, and this is level like that, and then this is level like that, and this is level like that, and then your shelf will be 100% level and won't be wobbly whenever you set it on, and then you don't have to worry about shimming it. So then we effectively made 2 shelves. We got our first little cubby right here for the trash can, shelf right here, and then the next one, however big you want your shelf. Next one would go probably about right here, shelf, and then you could either just do 3 big ones or next piece and then do the angle, which is what I'm gonna do. Okay, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. I got the 3 shelves in. I got this top one in. If you can't tell, that's 100% flat, and this is not. So that's what I mean. You can't see the bracket pieces. On the very tallest one, you might be able to see it a little bit if you look, like the shadow. And this is how you do that math. I'll go ahead and show you. So you get the full length that it sticks out from the wall to the very end, which is 17 and 3/16. And then you subtract 9/16. And then, because that's going to be how thick this is, your board here. And then it's just a 1/16 over a half. So then I was like, okay, that will give you 16 and 5/8. And then you subtract 11 and 1/4, because that is the size of the full length of one of these. And then that will show you the rip that the back needs to be, because I'm making the face be flush with that, if you see what I mean. I'm not adding trim on the sides. And if I wanted to, all you'd have to do is scoot the shelf out. I'm stapling my shelves in, so this is, you can see this, and that's how you get it to where it's super sturdy. It's not moving, even though that's really floating and nothing's connecting it. You could make them to where you could take the shelves in and out, or move them up and down. On that picture I showed at the beginning, she had me drill holes every 3 inches so that she could literally come in, take the notches out, move them down, and move the shelf. I didn't staple in nothing. All that was free floating. Now I explained to her, whenever you're building these, your fake faces here are flush to the size that they're at. So you're going to want to measure and cut each one. They're going to be a little bit different if you need them to be perfect. Now this one, I didn't really mind that much because I'm going to just float that in with the kind of spackle or caulk even, and then you can paint that, because these are staying the way they are, and that's how I'm going to do it. But hers, I had to do it absolutely perfect, but whenever you moved it, it wouldn't be perfect. And I explained that to her. She was cool with it. because the wall kind of does this a little bit. It's off by 1/16 maybe, whatever. I used a laser, but I was just saying if you move the shelf down or up, then that fake face might not fit perfectly. There might be a gap on either side. So as long as you're aware of that, you can have the shelf that moves up and down, or you can spend pretty much a whole day making sure that it is 100% straight. Because just because you're level shows that it's level, it's in the lines, but it might be like less than a 1/16 off or whatever. That could throw something else off there and then have a 1/16 of a gap that you'd be able to see with your eye. So if you want it perfect, that's something to keep in mind. But that's how we got the rip that's back here. Because I'm doing where the face is flush. So then I had to make it less than that. That's how I got that math. And then once you get your shelf in, I put my first shelf in, then I just measured. What is it? That's 15 and 5/8. All of them were the same on this one. But like I said, I wasn't being as perfect as I normally would have because I'm going to caulk that and paint it because these are staying. But if you're going to want them floating or moving, not caulked in or spackled, then you're going to want to measure and get exact on every single one down to the fraction. And then that's how you get it seamless. And so that's pretty much that. That's how we got that. That first one's in. And then that way, whenever you put it in, it should be flush like that. And then you measure it up. You get it absolutely perfect. And then that's where you would staple it in. And then you just spackle over your staples and then you're done. And that's effectively the shelf. I just did that on steroids on the bookshelf one. And then I'm going to do this exact same thing in the dead center. And that's how I'm going to get my fake thing. But you'll see that later. So we'll go ahead and finish this up. And I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of trim going like this. Okay.
And this was pretty late in the day, but I got done with most of it, and then all that's left on this shelf is just a spackle.
So I kind of tied it into the roof there. Had it come back.
Me at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep.
On molding. Still seal the ceiling through there. You could add a ceiling panel there if you wanted to. I don't see the point, but you're standing back here, which is typically what you go for. You're not even going to be able to tell. Boom. And just like that, you pretty much have your both sides. If you were going for like pure aesthetics, like if I was building this as a bookshelf on a wall, I would have went all the way to the ceiling. The only reason I didn't, the ceiling, as you can tell, it's around 9 feet and like 8 inches after everything, or 9 feet 10 inches after everything. I would need a 10-foot board, which these normal 1x12 by 8s or of just pine, because I'm painting them, are going to be around $15, and a 10-foot board is like 20 something, so it's almost 50% more just to get 2 foot more. But if you wanted to, I would need 3 more technically, because you're going to cut that rip. And I was like, nah, I would never use that anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not that tall, so that's about the most I can reach. And so that's about where that shelf's going to be, and that shelf's going to be there. And then once you get it in, pretty much how you get rid of that line is I use vinyl spackling. It's in a red tub. And that's how I do all of my cracks. And then go back with my nail holes. And then if you ever have it like this, it's where this part is like in like less than a 1/16. What I normally do is just kind of feather it so you can see this is perfect, perfect, feathered, perfect, perfect. And then over here, perfect, kind of perfect, feathered, 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 feathered. So I just kind of just smear it in there, and then take your knife and then go like this, and then that'll feather it out down to the smallest point, and then it'll be completely flat whenever you get done. And then I added the pieces of crown molding up here. That's how you kind of tie it all in together. And if you really wanted to if you had a slanted roof like this, then what you could do is put one board all the way across it as like a top shelf, and then that would aesthetically work. I'm not going to do that because, like I said, I will never use that. It'll maybe I'll come back and add it for aesthetics, but that would be about it. But then other than that, I'm just going to put the two right here, and then so we'll go ahead and do that real quick. This is one thing I figured I would show on here. So this is exactly how I get my face here. Have no nail holes, because I don't know if you know this. Whenever you use wood like filler, it does not match 100%. So I just prefer not to use it at all. So I glue it with interior exterior Titebond 3. You can see it down there, that's what I use. And then I just get 4, make sure it's flush up top, that's really the only thing that matters. And dry fit everything beforehand. So what I would do is I measure it, I cut this board, then I dry fit it, then I stain it, then I dry fit it again. Then I take the measurement for the face off of that, make sure it's perfect. Because remember, you're not going to caulk or do any spackle in between. So as perfect as you want it is how you're going to have to cut the stain pieces. Now you could use clear caulk, of course, and if you wanted to. So what I'm going to do is glue it. That's what I'm going to glue. It's 100% tight. I already dry fit it like 4 times. And then, because if you mess it up, you really got to hope it's smaller. You can just it's too tight, and then you can cut a little sliver off. But if it's too small, you're gonna have to get a whole new piece, because unless you're okay with the gap. But it's kind of a one-shot kind of thing as far as the stain goes. And then the Titebond 3, it says to clamp it for a minimum of 30 minutes. Just leave it on there for an hour. That's what I do. Just for time effectiveness. I'm gonna get the rest of this done today. These are the last 2 pieces. I'm going to leave this on for probably another 10 or 15 minutes. And you can kind of tell, look in your seam here. And this is like 100% flush. But look in your seam here. And you can tell the wood. You can see the wood glue start changing color. It's still kind of light right there, so leave it. Here's probably really good. So you can see that. I would leave it. Until it gets kind of darker, and then you can tell that it's not that milky color anymore. Then it's pretty much done. But usually I take whatever the manufacturer says and then double it. That way you don't have to worry about it popping off. But I'm okay with using glue in this circumstance, because I'm never going to be pulling on that shelf. It's literally just for looks. If you're doing it for a drawer or whatever, then I would use S2E6 and shoot some nails in it and then do the wood fill. But on this specific, I'm not really too worried about it, because you're not going to be pulling on a shelf. And then you can either nail it down or not once you get it fitted in there. These center shelves don't really matter that much, because they're not going to pop out super easy. But I figured I'd just go ahead and show that, how I accomplished that, and include that in here for anybody who wants to know. And then here we go. It's all done. As you can tell, see the top here, shelf here. This is a dark walnut, and that's tricorn black if you wanted to see the colors. And then that's pretty much that. Like I said, if you wanted to add a shelf up there, you could. I'm choosing not to, because pretty short. And that's about as much as I can reach. So I don't really feel like putting a ladder in here and grabbing that shelf. So I would never use it. But otherwise, you can put that if you want to. And this was a pretty fun build. Hope you learned something. If you did, like and subscribe. I do this kind of stuff all the time. So yeah, next one.